Seattle Seahawks now. I have them going 9-8, just missing the playoffs. You have them going an additional 9-8, just missing the playoffs. Where are we here with the Seattle Seahawks? Is 9-8 to you? Because I think you could look about this. You could look at this in two different ways. Is 9-8 to you sort of like it's a little disappointing 9-8, or are you looking at some of the changes that we've seen from Seattle over the last year, especially this offseason, and you're saying no, 9-8's a complimentary 9-8. I think that they're still going to be a good team. How do you view this 9-8 record with them missing the playoffs? What do you think about this team?
I view this kind of optimistically. They very well could make the playoffs. I think last year their front seven on defense and even the injuries to their offensive line kind of let them down. They had to get better in the trenches. I think they've added some guys, especially on defense, that do make them better. That's really what it came down to for me. I think they're a playoff caliber team. I believe they were the first team for me to miss the playoffs. I think they were the closest team out, but I think they certainly have enough talent, and I don't think Geno Smith gets enough credit for how he's directed this offense the last 2 years, the vertical shots they take down the field, and I think what you hope for with this team is that this new coaching staff really brings a jolt to them, and just this schematic, like just more modern kind of thing on both sides of the ball. I love Ryan Grubb, their offensive coordinator. Last year, what they did at Washington, and he gets to go 6 miles down the road, first of all, for his new job, Ryan Grubb does. So that helps. He can just stay right at home. But the deep passing game for me with Geno Smith over the last 2 years, he's the highest graded deep passer in the NFL. I think this is where this team needs to excel. Bringing Ryan Grubb in as your offensive coordinator, I think it's a really good fit for this offense and the playmakers they have. And as far as Mike Macdonald, I just think more diversity in their defense. And I know last year, sometimes when you don't have the players, you can't get that diverse. But especially using a guy like Devin Witherspoon, who last year, outside, he was great. They move him into the slot midseason. He's great there. He's a great tackler. He's really aggressive. I think he's a dark horse candidate that he could win Defensive Player of the Year, just with the stats, the traditional stats that he could put up. Interceptions, forced fumbles, tackles, all of that stuff, especially if he's going to play in the slot. If you have a freak like that playing in the slot, he could rack up numbers. But I think they certainly have the talent of a playoff team. They have a really good secondary. You've got a D-line that's ascending. They re-signed Leonard Williams. You picked up Byron Murphy. The offensive line is the big question for me, and I signed some veterans. I love the signing of their new center, Connor Williams. I think that's a perfect fit to get him. He had a great year with the Dolphins last year. I think he fits in Ryan Grubb's run scheme. They don't go as heavy and as reliant on the outside zone scheme as say, someone like Mike McDaniel does, but it's still kind of the core of his running game. And you know, they didn't run the ball a ton, but Ryan Grubb still understands that he needs balance in his offense. Even last year at Washington with Michael Penix and Rome Odunze and all those guys, he understood in certain spots, I need to run the ball. And I think one of their biggest problems why they didn't win the national title game is they just couldn't run the ball at all on Michigan. They had no balance in that game. But games where they needed it, I think about the USC game, I think about Arizona State game, games where they needed to run the ball, they found a way to do it with Dylan Johnson and their offensive line. So I think there's going to be some balance on this offense if Kenneth Walker is healthy. And to me, though, it starts with the vertical passing game. And I think you could go with Geno here, but I think you are. I'm going to go with DK Metcalf. And you can't throw the ball downfield like that if you don't have the weapons. And DK Metcalf's as good a vertical weapon as we have. Since 2020, a 96.4 receiving grade on targets of 10 yards or more, 10 air yards or more. I think it's such a perfect offense. It would not actually shock me in this offense if DK Metcalf had the best year of his career, because it's just such a perfect fit. Ryan Grubb, at Washington, they threw the ball deep more than any team in the country, and I could see the same thing between the way Geno spins it downfield and the way Metcalf goes and gets it downfield. I think Metcalf is the most valuable part of this offense. And look, they need balance, but what he brings with the size and speed, it just suits everything around him so perfectly in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good transition into my offensive MVP, which is Geno. And I don't think that Geno necessarily gets enough credit for what he has been over the last 2 years. Over these last 2 seasons, the only quarterback with a higher big-time throw percentage than Geno Smith was Josh Allen. That's it. Geno's been incredible when it comes to deep passing, and obviously you mentioned Metcalf's numbers. He's been on the receiving end of a lot of those great passes, but this is a big time thrower in Geno Smith. Now, if you look at the last 2 years, it's been a little bit of an up and down, and I think the reason why he doesn't get enough credit is because it's sort of been a tale of two halves over the last 2 seasons, but it's been the same tale just at different times. If you look at the first half of 2022, he had a big time throw. He had 20 big time throws and just 8 turnover worthy plays. But then the second half of 2022 wasn't as good. He was still throwing the ball a lot and getting a lot of big time throws, but he was also getting a lot of turnover worthy plays. So that number was a lot closer to even between those two. And then to start last year, it was kind of the same thing. It was a lot of big time throws, but also a lot of turnover worthy plays. But then the second half of last season, again, 17 big time throws, only 10 turnover worthy plays. So he has these 2 stretches of really, really good play. And I think that if that kind of comes together in this third year as him being a full-time starter for the Seahawks in Grubb's offense, this could be a high-flying offense once again, especially with Jackson Smith and Jigba getting better. I think Tyler Lockett's still a great player. The more healthy of a Kenneth Walker you get, I think the more balanced, like you said, this offense is. There's no doubt about it. The offensive line's got to play better this year. I think that the chat was right in saying that, like, hey, the question marks in both of the trenches, those are the big questions that you have to answer for the Seahawks. But the MVP specifically is Geno Smith, because I think that he is just one of the best passers that we have in the NFL, especially when it comes to throwing deep. And now he has an offensive coordinator, well, still has an offensive coordinator, I should say, that is willing to push the ball down the field with really good vertical weapons that he's got to throw the ball to. So I got Geno Smith as my offensive MVP. You kind of were reading the notes of who I got as my defensive MVP. I got Devon Witherspoon as my defensive MVP. I also agree with you. I think he's a candidate to potentially be a defensive player of the year guy. Now, it's really tough for a corner to win that award, right? Especially when they are as all around as Devon Witherspoon might be for them. You basically just have to get a crap ton of interceptions to win that award. But regardless, he'll get the recognition from us this year. I can expect that, because in the slot, in the outside, he is a stud. He's one of the best corners in the game, and him getting to team up with Mike Macdonald, I think Macdonald's going to look at this guy, like you said, and just say, I have a chess piece. I have a player that can be a total mismatch neutralizer in a lot of ways, whether it is in run defense, whether it is in blitzing, whether it's in man coverage in the slot, man coverage on the outside, zone coverage on the outside, whatever it is. Devon Witherspoon's got the talent to be able to win for you in the secondary. And I am excited that Mike Macdonald's now is his head coach and also defensive mind that gets to use him as such. But who is your defensive MVP for this team?
Trevor, is there anyone out there aware that Seattle signed the highest graded linebacker in football last year? Is anybody? I know they lost Bobby Wagner, and that's a big reason he's my defensive. Terrell Dodson, who they got from the Bills in the middle, the highest
graded linebacker.
He was the highest graded linebacker. He came in after Matt Milano. Matt Milano gets hurt, and the sky is falling in Buffalo, and he comes in and replaces him, and he's the highest graded linebacker in football. And he's the only linebacker in football last year who graded at least an 85 in run defense and coverage. The only one. I go, all of a sudden, what he did stepping in for Matt Milano, who's as valuable as any linebacker in the league, saved the Bills' season. It saved their season, honestly, because I thought when Matt Milano got hurt, I was like, oh, this is shot. This is their defense's shot. He walks in, and he does all the same things Milano would do. He was great in run D. He was getting downhill, great in coverage. He can really, really run. And I think a lot of people last year, because they had it started out with Milano and Terrell Bernard, and Bernard kept playing, right, and he had a solid year. But I think some people thought, okay, well, now we're going to see Dorian Williams, the rookie out of Tulane. But Dodson steps in there, and he was just incredible. I mean, I don't think it's said enough that literally the Seattle Seahawks signed the highest. They lost Bobby Wagner and replaced him with one of the very few guys that graded higher than him and graded higher than anybody in the league last year. Flip on the Bills tape and watch Terrell Dodson after Milano went out, and it was just like, wow, this guy fits right in. I mean, could you imagine if they had been playing Milano and Dodson together the whole time? I mean, I don't even know what that would have looked like. But no, I think, first of all, his talent, massive talent, and I love Witherspoon. That's an easy pick for defensive MVP. I get it. I watched his tape all last year. He's amazing. But I think Dodson's talent level and what he showed us last year, and the importance of replacing a guy like Bobby Wagner and in the middle, and for a team especially that again, the number one thing that let them down in the second half of last year was their run defense. No question. They were just getting gashed left and right every single week. If Dodson comes in here and fixes and helps fix that, even after losing a veteran presence like Bobby Wagner, a future Hall of Famer, I think it's incredibly important to this team and their run defense. I know they can cover. I do. With Witherspoon and Trey Brown and some of the guys they have on the back end, Tariq Woolen, I mean, they can cover. I don't question their secondary. I question their front seven. I question their ability to defend the run, but I feel a lot better about it with Terrell Dodson in there.
I love the shout out. That is fantastic. I love it, and we'll see obviously how much of a player he is for the middle of that defense. And shoot, from what you said, I'm already hyped up about it. Jackson Smith-Njigba is my breakout player here for this group. JSN, stud that we saw from Ohio State, obviously misses last year with injury, which was disappointing. 63.9 receiving grade last season. I've got to believe that we're going to see the best version of JSN that we have seen since his sophomore year when he was at Ohio State. And it's been a while, and I think that people are kind of forgetting that. But JSN, especially as your team's wide receiver 3 on a really good wide receiver team in a really good wide receiver group, that's some special stuff. So I think it's about time. Let's get a fully healthy JSN for a full season here with Seattle. And certainly we already talked about how Geno Smith is fearless, how he'll be able to get the ball in the hands of his playmakers when they get open, no matter where they are on the field. And I think we're going to see the best version of JSN that we have seen since that sophomore season for him with the Buckeyes. Who is your breakout player here for this team?
So this is a team looking for studs on the defensive line, and they may have found one if we get one more breakout from Boye Mafe off the edge. A 77.8 pass rush grade last year, 58 pressures, and a jump in pass rush win rate. That's super important to his success. 5.9% in his rookie year, jumped all the way to 13.1% last year. Big, powerful player, can play the run too. He's just a lot to handle for offensive tackles. I think this is a guy, if he makes one more jump and you see that 13.1 go to like 15 or 16, you're really talking about a guy who can be the anchor of their pass rush, because the interior pass rush is going to be really good, right? Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, you got some other guys in there. They rotate a lot of edge guys in there, but I think Boye Mafe as far as talent level as a pass rusher, I think he's the most talented edge rusher on this team. And if he takes another step in his third season, I think it helps out their pass rush especially a lot. They're trying to build the depth on this defensive line, but they do need a star. And I wonder if he can become that star player for them off the edge that they're looking for.
I also wonder if Byron Murphy, my breakout rookie, it can be the star for them. You know, you sign Leonard Williams, you got Jonathan Hankins, you got Jaron Reed still on the team, Draymond Jones, but they need some juice, right? I mean, like, I think that those guys on the front are going to be fine for you in terms of a floor, but they need a ceiling. I think you mentioned Boye Mafe, his presence, that's a ceiling raiser. I think the reason why you draft Byron Murphy where you do in the first round is because that is a ceiling raiser. I think that Murphy is certainly fantastic at run defense as well. His highest grade this past preseason came in run defense, but he's got the juice for you. He has the ability to be a great pass rusher, and you see those numbers there, 91.5 pass rush grade in 2023. So this is somebody who really is just a great all-around defensive lineman. He's a little undersized, kind of depending on what your role is for him along the defensive line, but again, this is a player I'm excited for Mike McDonald to get his hands on because he knows what kind of a weapon he can be. So I already like the veteran signings that they have made to present themselves with a higher floor than they had last year. Now you've got two guys in. I'm glad that you mentioned Mafe. I mentioned Murphy here as ones that can really raise the ceiling of what it can be, especially on those third downs where you really need to get off the field and get after the quarterback. Murphy is somebody to help you do that. So I think that he is going to be their best rookie, honestly, because he needs to be. He has to be for this team.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm with you on Murphy. And Christian Haynes, the guard from UConn, is a guy I would have picked here had he earned a starting spot, but it looks like Laken Tomlinson and Anthony Bradford are going to be their starting guards, so we'll have to wait on Haynes. But no, I'm with you on Murphy, and I think to echo it on Murphy and the importance in run defense too. Look, last year, and I know I'm going on a college rant here, but Texas, yeah, they have their high-flying offense. They had Jonathan Brooks and Quinn Ewers and everything, but the brick wall in the middle of their defense that was Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, that was the biggest reason that they made their playoff run last year. Those two guys in the middle, Murphy's he's so good. And I think the thing for me, you talk about play strength, right? And a lot of times, how many rookies a year, Trevor, do you say, I really like him. I like his talent. I need a year for him to get stronger and play and have his play strength be at an NFL.
Too many, Dalton.
So many, right? Probably half the guys that you talk about. Man, once he gets in the weight room, he's going to be real. There's no play strength issue with Byron Murphy. That's one of the strongest dudes on the field walking in right now. It's the one thing. That's what I noticed at Texas, even playing just a straight up. They had, think about it like this. He's so strong that even with Tavondre Sweat, who weighed in at, I think, 366 at the Combine, he had Tavondre Sweat next to him, and Byron Murphy was the guy playing over the center.
He was playing nose.
That's how strong Byron Murphy is. So there's no issue with play strength. I think he is going to be really good in run defense. The pass rush, we'll see. I mean, he's more of a power rusher right now, but I mean, man, oh man, I don't think you have any issues with him adjusting to NFL level play strength.